Sonic's 35th anniversary is upon us, and with it we've gotten well, not much, actually. Recently, we've gotten some more Cross Worlds announcements, which, yeah, that's pretty neat. Sonic Pico Park, alright, I'll be honest. I'm excited as shit for this, I don't care. You guys can fuck off, this is the real men's turn to play. But all in all, this has been a really quiet year for the franchise, despite it being the 35th anniversary. Outside of those two, what is there? Sonic Blitz? Sonic Rumble? Sorry, it's Sonic Rumble Party, apologies for the dead name. Now, while a lot of people are acting pretty doom and gloom about it, personally, I think there's still plenty of time for a big announcement. That big announcement being Sonic Frontiers 2. I have high hopes for this game for several reasons. The budget is clearly higher, Kishimoto has been very responsive to feedback, and they're actually using Frontiers 1 as a base to build off of, which gives them a good idea of where to evolve its gameplay. Now, you likely know me as the D1 Frontiers hater, and while true, this doesn't mean I'm not excited for its sequel. Quite the opposite, actually. Maybe I'm just fucked in the head. Frontiers had a very interesting concept that they weren't able to do anything interesting with, and with all the feedback and higher budget and all that jumbo, I genuinely am expecting Frontiers 2 to be one of the greats. With this being said, there's plenty of specific things I want to see out of the game, and while in the past I've talked about things I'd like to see from it, I think now I could articulate them a bit better, and I also feel as though I could talk about more in general for a more comprehensive Frontiers 2 wishlist video of sorts. So, I'm gonna do it. Subscribe! Oh, people don't get mad at this video, but I don't have high hopes for the fandom that gifted us. Sonic Frontiers is like the Charlie Kirk of the Sonic series. Sonic fans react to critiques like MAGA. Whoever wrote this needs a Nobel Prize. I wonder who wrote it.
Whoa, what is happening?
Okay, it wasn't actually me. I'm not funny enough to think of that. But anyways, first off, I want to address the visuals of the game. Frontiers 1, it looked really bad. It went for this generic realism approach, and while realism has worked in the past, it was always stylized. Frontiers opted to use stock assets and textures for most of its runtime, and it led to a game that looked painfully boring and uninteresting. Kishimoto looked at the Unreal tech demos for Sonic in real life and thought, fuck, that's genius. I could go on, but this video is about Frontiers 2. For Frontiers 2, I'd like to base my wants off of, well, firstly, what I want, and secondly, something that's actually somewhat realistic. This applies to the entire video. As much as I could say something like, make the visuals as surreal and vibrant as Sonic CD, that's not very realistic. So in some areas, I'll say what I want from a realistic best case scenario. But also when I say I want more color in this game, I'm not talking about like oversaturated or a blinding mess like Sonic Colors Ultimate.
Holy God, what are you showing me? His head. Come on! Open your eyes!
So for the visuals, I've accepted that realism will always be a part of these games in some way as long as it's not like 2D art. Fact is, I think surrealism is at its best when it's in those pixel art games, but that doesn't mean it has to be completely absent here. I think if we want the best reference point for surrealism, the best place to look is Sonic Colors for a modern day example. This game fits in with other similarly looking boost games like Unleashed and Generations, except here there's more focus on abstract and surreal environments, all thanks to this game's wonderful art direction. Tropical Resort is the golden example as it's a very tangible place, I guess you could say. It's easy to imagine the place in a real life setting, but it's got all these colorful signs coming in all shapes and sizes, colors. There's different patterns on nearly everything in the stage. It's vibrant, colorful, it's awe-inspiring to me. And even when we shift over to slightly more, I guess, realistic areas like Asteroid Coaster, the place still looks pretty surreal. I think if they want to inject some surrealism back into the franchise, I honestly think this is the blueprint. Now, you could say this next bit is more gameplay, which it kind of is, but it also pertains to the visuals. I hope that each map or biome in Frontiers 2 has varied terrain. For example, a grassy plain would be a bit smoother, whereas a more canyony area would be a little more jagged, a little bit blocky. Now, if we look at Frontiers 1, we can see it actually kind of does this. But there's a big problem. These maps all play the exact fucking same. The environments are pretty much always smooth, and when we have these more canyony areas like Ares Island, it boils down to completely smooth terrain, just kinda sectioned off by large rock walls. It's not dynamic. The large formations don't add anything to the gameplay, they just force you to take a more linear path to somewhere. And because Sonic doesn't have any real momentum physics, he reacts to every bit of terrain the same. Yes, I'll talk about momentum later when we get to gameplay. Real quick before we continue, I don't have to give you the spiel, you get it. Like, subscribe, and comment on what you want out of Frontiers 2. If you want to support me, the best way you can is by joining my Patreon link in the description to get early access to videos for as little as $2.50 a month. But let's get back to it. Now, off of visuals, let's talk about writing and characterization. Alright, I think Ian Flynn is a good writer, but I do not think he should be the main writer for the game. I don't think he should be removed, but I don't think he should be the main writer, and for God's sakes, there needs to be a writer's room. Bring in Gooseworks.
Hooba Dooba Tales, that sure was a wacky adventure, wasn't it?
It sure was. We really did stop Eggman from that really evil scheme.
Now guys, I know that was really exciting, but we need to check back in on Knuckles. He was acting pretty weird the last time I saw him.
Oh no! no, Knuckles is abstracting.
I'm having contractions, it fucking hurts! Help me, please!
A lot of these characters' characterizations are in a weird spot because it's all done by Ian Flynn, and, which, don't get me wrong, he can write some good stuff and he's got a few characters down pretty perfectly like Knuckles, but there's also some characters he just needs work on. Amy is so obvious I don't even need to talk about it, but Sonic and Tails are kinda meh. Now, Sonic absolutely has fantastic moments within this game, but there's also a lot of flaws in the way normal dialogue is written for him that seems to be indicative of Flynn missing some of the nuances the characters have. On paper, Sonic's characterization is pretty spot on, but most of the problem stems from the dialogue. Sonic has this extra level of constant banter and wittiness that plagues a lot of his lines and character interactions. Now, I'm not saying Sonic can't ever be witty or engage in banter, but the way it's handled in Frontiers treats it like a normal, consistent part of his character, when in reality, it's a rarity for him to talk like this. Or it's at least way less consistent, with witty remarks saved for once-in-a-while lines. This sort of constantly self-aware millennial banter, as it's usually referred to, is something that keeps these characters from feeling as sincere as they once were. The way that Sonic and Tails talk with each other feels less like brothers talking casually and more like fake MCU banter where multiple lines can't go by without a small little joke being made. And speaking of Tails, the issues I mentioned there apply here, but I also think a problem he has is that he's been a bit Flanderized. Tails is a brave and loyal kid who just so happens to be really smart. As of late though, it feels like Tails' primary trait is that he's smart and less of a footnote within his character bio. You'll notice in games pre-colors, his smarts are usually never brought into display front and center. It's all a bit, subtle, actually. However, after that, and recently for Frontiers and IDW, it seems like they really focused on that aspect of him more than anything else. I will say Frontiers Tails gets a little bit of a pass, as he's used more so as an apology, so whatever.
Oh, please, suck your dick, please! I'll do anything!
However, it's something to note for the future. And finally, with the writing, ditch this fake melancholic tone. There was an attempt made to really make this game seem a bit darker and serious, and all it ends up feeling is kind of forced. This is a story that isn't all that deep, using a melancholic tone as a mask to make it seem more serious. You don't have to accompany each conversation with a sad piano melody or make Sonic's voice deeper. That's stupid. You can have a serious Sonic story and still have the characters speak how they usually speak. It doesn't ruin the mood or break the tone. This is evident by you know, all of the best stories in the franchise. Now, there's probably a lot more specifics of the writing I could delve into, but I covered most of the main stuff, so I feel like that's good. I don't care what the story is as long as it's good. I don't have like a pitch or anything. Metal Sonic would be cool though. But now for the biggest part, gameplay. Ripping the band-aid off because you already know this is going to be the focus, momentum. Giving Sonic this big open world to roam around in only really works when Sonic is able to interact with that world. In Frontiers, he really can't because of the boost, which is really just a run button in here. The only thing you can really do in Frontiers by interacting with your environment is flinging yourself off of slopes and landing where you want to land. That's it. Despite how much this game promotes the idea of freedom in its gameplay, it's one of the most limiting Sonic games in terms of what you're capable of, as everything is handled the exact same. It considers itself open-ended, but it really isn't at all when you're given just terrain that all operates the same, and random sets of rinse and repeat on-rails homing chain challenges scattered randomly around the maps. There's nothing truly open-ended about Sonic Frontiers when all the platforming sections that occupy it are clearly defined linear point A to B sequences. The only thing open-ended about it is being able to fling yourself into the sky, skipping over platforming sections and landing on another one of these boring platforming sections. Frontiers 2 desperately needs proper momentum physics and the removal of the boost. This could allow for great variation in platforming challenges and how you tackle them, as maybe instead of being able to launch yourself off of any slope and land back on any platforming section, with momentum you could still accomplish this by chaining together scattered bits of level design, gaining more and more speed throughout them until you take one big slope jump, which sends you super high in the air. This incentivizes proper use of Sonic's physics, and it lets the player break the open world in certain areas if they play very well. It encourages the player to chain together random pieces of level design in order to keep a meaningful flow going that can aid in the next piece of level design. And to do this, momentum isn't the only thing we need. The level design of the open world needs to be way different. A big problem in Frontiers 1 is that there is a clear separation between the terrain on the ground and the platforming challenges. Frontiers 2 needs to make sure that the lines are blurred heavily. I think it's perfectly fine to have some very clear point A to B sections, but there absolutely needs to be an effort to merge the platforming sections with the terrain itself. I also think they should go all in on the open-ended design by making the level design itself more open-ended. What I mean by that is doing sort of what Sonic CD did. That game's level design is very open-ended, and it leads to several sections that aren't clearly defined as sections. It isn't very clear where one section starts and the next begins. And I want to see a lot of that from Frontiers 2. By having momentum physics at the core of Sonic's gameplay, this is such an easy thing to do, even unintentionally. Small descents of a hill become an opportunity to gain speed, and uphill becomes a potential slope jump opportunity. There's so many ways to have interesting open-ended level design by just giving him proper rolling physics. Any random piece of terrain can be an opportunity, a way of doing some crazy shit in clip farming for Twitter. Frontiers 2 could genuinely be the first game to suck you off. Also, this is sort of detached from the gameplay a bit, but you want to know what would be really cool? Dynamic music. Music that changes intensity based on how fast you're going. It starts off sort of slow and soft, but as you build up speed, the instruments start kicking in. The faster you go, the drums maybe get more bombastic, the guitar more intense. There's so much cool shit you could do with this, and I think it could do wonders in making the feeling of going faster feel so much more impactful. What the fuck are they gonna do with cyberspace? One thing I don't think anybody's really thought of is what the hell are they gonna do with it? First off, if they choose to have the same amount of cyberspace stages, I think it's unrealistic to expect a new visual style and theme for each one, but I don't want to see any old themes like fucking Green Hill. Give us 5 or 6 original themes that look incredible, and there you go. Also, if we have cyberspace with momentum physics, dude, there's a chance we get genuinely some of the best Sonic levels of all time. You guys have no idea how much fucking potential that has. I'm sure they can't still be like super long or in depth with a bunch of different paths, but even a more linear level structure using rolling physics could be phenomenal, and I'd absolutely love to see it. Or, yeah, just rip off Green Hill level design. I don't care anymore. Well, to end it off, while Frontiers 1 might have been a game that I have a nearly infinite amount of issues with, it's one that I can see the potential of. A sequel to this game with an actual vision at the start of development could be generational, and I genuinely don't think it's that unrealistic. They likely have a vision, and they definitely have a budget. And with Kishimoto being so responsive to feedback around Frontiers' launch, I have a feeling that he has a lot more direct control over the sequel. So, I can't wait for the future. And with it being June and all, there's a chance we could get a fucking Sonic Central or something at any time now. I don't know. I'm scared. I'm fucking scared. But if you guys enjoyed the video, you get the gist. You can join my Patreon and get early access to videos for as little as $2.50 a month. It's the best way to support me, so I'd love it if you could. And leave a comment saying about what you want to see in Frontiers 2. I'm very interested in what you guys have to say. I'll see you all next time. Peace.
I was playing Sonic 2. Tails is gay.